Oh, hi. You're early. And welcome to Ranking the Pistols to Fill the Void Part 2. We've all got time to kill, mortality to be distracted from, and if we have to reduce music to some kind of cheap beauty contest to do so, then so be it. Am I right? In Part 1, we dispensed with the lower orders. Now it's time to fulfill every punk's secret desire, rising out of the middle ranks to hobnob with the upper crust. Number 10, Don't Gimme No Lip Child. We open the top 10 in style with Glenn Matlock's greatest ever bass line. Funky and badass. Even at their best, Pistols' bass lines were usually designed and destined to be tucked under in a supporting role, much like the nameless human in capitalist society. This arrangement is unique among Pistols tracks, giving bass and guitar equal but separate roles, similar to a forerunner of post-punk. As a cover, this is a massive reinvention from every angle. 60s songwriting had this one creepy as hell tendency which unfortunately mirrored society at the time. The songs that referred to women as child or little girl. Let's all join hands and judge the song's writer, Dave Berry. He thought when his girlfriend answered back she needed to be infantilised. What a freak! By the more evolved moral standards of a different time. Back then, he was just plain old Dave. Lydon, by singing the words literally, both mocks his tut-tutting elders and skewers the song's outdated mentality. That made this the most relevant and timely cover they did, as well as the best musically. So, just one song into the top 10 and heavy hangs the burden. Anyone can tell you their 20th favourite Pistols song, who gives a shit? Who am I to say what's 9th? Who? Number 9, Did You Know Wrong? Another unusual song for the Pistols musically, in this case because it was written by their very own Pete Best, Wally Nightingale, who started the band before any of the others could even play, leading them through some Faces covers and a couple of Faces type originals before being booted for looking wrong. I think we can all agree there are few things sadder than being told you got the wrong face. There's just no comeback to that. What if I've got the wrong face? This track, the sound of status quo taking a Sunday stroll, is his legacy. And shame on the Pistols, they didn't credit him for it. Nightingale went on to live a meagre life, and the one crumb he was entitled to, being credited on and paid for a song heard by millions, was denied him. My favourite bit is the rootsy guitar breakdown. It makes for a vivid snapshot of the pre-punk days. The song pushes forwards at the same time as it looks back, reflecting how some people at the time were hungry for the new sound, while others got left behind. Number 8, Anarchy in the UK. Once again, this project's in danger of unravelling, as I wonder, should historical value count above musical value, or vice versa? Is the question meaningless? Should I even have a YouTube channel? Why do birds suddenly appear? No, wait, I know this one. When I really think about this tune and break it down, I realise it's all about the... Shut up, I'm not dead yet! Right. Sorry. When I really break the tune down, I realise it's all about the last 90 seconds. The way that final verse overlaps into that last chorus, and then the chorus becomes this big end refrain with all those layered vocals. That's when it really turns into an anthem. It's easily one of their greatest recorded moments. It takes a while getting there though. Does it really need 4 verses? Does it need 2 solos? Lyrically, it's about the teenager's internal revolt, the rebel's energy of being old enough to ask questions, but young enough not to be sick of hearing the answers. If you're in the wrong mood for this song, it can strike you as laughable, but at other times, it'll almost bring a tear to the eye. Number 7, Silly Thing. I absolutely hated this song at first. Pistols music robbed of its edge. Who buys a Pistols record to hear normal singing from one of the backline lads? Well, as you can tell, it grew on me. It's the one Pistols song that shows vulnerability and heart, which is a thing well-adjusted people do to achieve connection with each other. These lads had an intense, traumatic experience as national hate figures, and even if this record only exists because Malcolm McLaren was desperate to finance this...
I walked around down into Soho, soliciting young kids.
It's right that there should be this slice of reflection at the end, a reckoning and a farewell rolled into one. When Jones sings, "What's the use of wasting time? Just move on, leave it all behind," there's a resignation and maturity in it that gets me right there, in a way that makes me think maybe everything isn't so bad after all. Even Lydon liked it, saying it showed the boys had learned something over the years. Number 6, My Way. Here's the one post-Lydon single that arguably sounds like the Pistols. They certainly never had a string section before, but unlike Steve's, Paul's, Ronnie Biggs's, Malcolm McLaren's or Tenpole Tudor's vocals, Sid here at least achieves the same sneering deconstruction of the very idea of singing that we've come to expect from the Sex Pistols. It's the Pistols adding one more to their tally of sacred cows, bursting the bubble of this pompous song. Doing it your way is not necessarily a good thing, and who better to make that point than a living train wreck? Of course, they could have asked a living, gradual acidification of the oceans with concomitant loss of biodiversity, but I wasn't available. While it's true there was more to Sid Vicious than his cartoon reputation, that's mostly what he portrays here, in slurred vocals and half-butchered lyrics. But the record also subverts that image, the supposedly talentless clothes horse of the group, proving himself a leery and expressive vocalist. There's a horrible, brilliant irony to it that grows as the track goes on, and the fact that he was dead within 8 months of its release only makes it more devastating. I must say, as we climb nearer the top of this mountain, I don't know if it's the lack of oxygen, the sugar kicking in, or maybe just the increasing quality of the music, but I find my spirits rising. I feel like a short celebration's in order. Number 5, Holidays in the Sun. The band never sounded quite as exciting as they did on this riff, partly courtesy of one of the greatest guitar sounds ever. It somehow sounds like a summer of chaos, which is what they were embroiled in at the time. The band were practically finished creatively after swearing on the telly. The sapping, day-to-day experience of being national scapegoats, and the fact that with Matlock gone they'd lost a pillar and gained dead weight, meant there was little time, energy or inclination for anything constructive. But when the remaining 3 got it together, they could still deliver. It's got a big chorus, a massive riff, and some clever structural stuff like putting the 3rd verse in a different key. Lydon's instinctive use of pitch comes into play when he sings the last chorus in a higher key than the previous 2. They absolutely could come up with the goods without Glenn. In fact, when I add it up, Steve Jones dominates this top 10, which contains 2 covers, a Wally Nightingale joint, and only 2 Glenn tunes. Suck it, Glenn! Number 4, No Feelings. They really liked their song titles with the word no in them, didn't they? No lit, no fun, did you know wrong, no feelings. That's the kind of insight you won't get anywhere else. It's kind of similar to the Ramones' early obsession with the word don't. I love this song, it's really fast. Could be a bit slow, the Pistols, couldn't they? Kind of take a while to get to the point. This doesn't really let up though, it doesn't really have a single weak moment in it. It's just more proof that Glenn wasn't the only game in town, you know. It was written during his time in the band, but without his help, no. It's like a gleeful getaway drive from all the finer moral virtues, you know. It's like a adrenalised hymn to selfishness, you know, the song. It's really good. Number 3, EMI. The band's reception by the music industry dropped by EMI after 90 days, dropped by A&M after 7, mirrored their reception by polite society, which hated them. So this song, in defiance of that industry, is also in defiance of that society. Lydon rubbing their faces in the fact that too many people love the band for them to be gotten rid of. The song is full of the confidence of a risk that's paid off, having one great moment after another from him and Jones, who matches Lydon by delivering a series of assured, triumphant riffs until the breakdown, which switches to a darker tone, being a reckoning with numerous setbacks, 11 bars, down and down. EMI is the Pistols at their most joyous. Number 2, God Save the Queen. Well, I've just had a short nap and I'm ready to just try and wrap this thing up. So, if importance were all that mattered, this would beat every other Pistols song, and most other songs besides. I mean, what else would come close? Strange Fruit, and not a lot else. And that's despite the fact that, lyrics aside, this is really just a decently effective bit of rock and roll. More interestingly stripped back than ass-kickingly amazing. But, like Anarchy, as a song, it gets better and better as it goes. Starting to get really good during the solo when the key drops down and they build to that mini climax. The last chorus is when your neck hairs really start flickering. Lydon brings in the real desperation and angst, and as he bellows out that last England's dreaming, you're hearing decades of smug, myopic complacency get the reality check it deserved from kids who never had the luxury of indulging those fantasies themselves. The No Future refrain is full of real despair, and it only makes one grateful how subsequent events have proven Lydon to be nothing more than a big misguided grumpy grump as planet Earth goes from strength to strength. At number 1, Bodies. This was the final Sex Pistols song. Belson may have come after, but that was just a silly old song Sid had written. None of the original 4 had anything to do with writing it. Some of the later tracks have their place, as we've seen, but this is the last ever collaboration between Lydon and any of his Pistols bandmates. It's fitting that it's also the greatest. God Save the Queen may have been brave and righteous, but this one cuts right at the heart of what we all share, the human condition. A song that spoke to everyone, from the lowliest bum all the way up to Her Majesty the Queen herself, whether either of them wanted to hear it or not. On its face, a song about a crazy fan who carried an aborted fetus around, it's really a song of reckoning with the blood and guts of human frailty. This is something Lydon never had the luxury of ignoring, having carried his own mother's miscarriages out in a bucket as a child. Here, he forces us to look into that bucket with him and see what we all came from and what we all go back to, a gurgling, bloody mess. He does this through probably the greatest punk vocal of all time, not only swearing so effectively as to render every other recorded instance of the F-word moot, but holding nothing back emotionally, taking us to the outer reaches of fear and disgust. I'm not an abortion, he insists, but he knows his time will come all the same, as do we all. And the band are on full form too. The intro is easily the greatest bit of music created by a unit whose riffs often weren't that special in themselves. The chord change into the chorus is great, and while there are 2 long stretches where they can't think of anything to do but repeat the end of the chorus over and over, that gives Lydon the space he needs to improvise and let his revulsion take full flight. It's like the musical equivalent of a slasher movie, with that purifying sensation of reclaiming some agency. None of us has to be here, trapped in these fragile bodies, prone to fail or come apart in an infinity of awful ways. And one of the few things we can do to take back some control is confront that horror and make transcendent entertainment from it. Like this song, which is messy, profane, cathartic and utterly wonderful.